Okay, we're good. All right. Well, so we want to welcome Mr. Cory Dickman with us today.
Hello.
Cory is, just so you know, a little background, Cory is a serial entrepreneur. He is the owner of Rogue Media Network, Waco Escape Rooms, Waco Axe Company, and more.
Good, and more. That's good. Yeah. Oh, but yeah, okay. Well, you're there then.
And he is also a member of the Startup Waco Advisory Council. And so, welcome, Cory. We are glad to have you here.
Thank you. So I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So, first off, will you give us a brief background on yourself, your career, where you started, how you progressed to where you are now?
Yeah, no, great question. So I grew up in Oregon, suburb of Portland. If any of you know where Oregon is or have been there, not Texas. So grew up there, found my way to Waco's. I went to Baylor, and so I had never been to Texas in my life. I'd always, I thought everyone rode horses here and had cowboy hats and stuff like that, and obviously that's not the case. But came here, did my undergrad at Baylor, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, so I stayed for grad school just to kick the can down the road, if you will. So
I can interject. What did you get your undergrad and your grad?
Yeah, sorry. So my undergrad was communications and film was my undergrad. I was trying to get a degree in business, but I couldn't pass accounting to save my life. I failed it twice, which is very hard to do. So my dad was like, hey, you can take this a third time. You probably will fail it again. Or if you just start your business somewhere down the road, just hire an accountant. I was like, I will do that. I will just hire an accountant and not do my own books. So kind of ended up happening that way. But anyway, so the undergrad was comm and film, and then my master's was sports management. Wanted to get into sales for a professional sports team, do sponsorships. Mm-hmm. Thought about maybe being like a sports agent. That was kind of one thing for a little bit there too. So wanted to go back home and work for the Portland Trailblazers, NBA team in Portland. And so that was like my dream at the time, was to finish my degree at Baylor and then go back to Portland. So, But yeah, so finished that. I did go back. I had interned with the Utah Jazz NBA team in Salt Lake. There was a guy there, their general manager is like the person that, puts the team together and stuff. He was a Baylor grad. And his son was actually on the men's basketball team at the time. So I was like, great, I had this cool in. And had a lunch with his assistant. Went really well. I was like, okay, I'm going to go down this pathway. Like, here we go, And had like 9 missed calls from my mom while I was at this lunch. I was like, what is going on? So like, get back to the car, and I'm like cloud 9. Like, I'm up here because the assistant was like, this went really well. Dennis is his name. He likes to hire our interns from Baylor. He's a big supporter of Baylor, so this is great. So I'm like already planned my life out in my head already, So I get to my car, all these missed calls, and I call my mom back, and I thought she was just calling to see how it went, because my whole family, everyone was excited. So I pick up, I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, I got 9 missed calls, and she's like crying, like you could hear her on the phone. I was like, what's going on? She's like, well, your dad and I didn't want to tell you because we knew you were really excited about this thing today, but I hadn't been feeling well, and we went to the doctor, and it looks like I have a tumor. And I'm like, what? And just like, you kind of go, and I'm a only child, so it's just like my mom, my dad, and me, and we don't got a lot of other family, so like we're just a really tight knit unit, and it was like, so you go from this like probably one of the best moments of my life to think like, oh, this interview went well, to now like, what the heck, like my best friend, like my mom and I are really tight, and like okay, like you'll be fine, whatever, and long story short, it ended up not being fine, and so my mom had passed away March of 2015, so this was like 9 years ago. But it just like, rocked my world. And so I declined the internship because I was like, my dad and I just needed to figure out life. And so we were in Salt Lake. We were living there. So we moved back to Portland, just be close to family and stuff. And just kind of figure out what was going on. I probably was depressed, and just trying to figure out the next step. And my mom was like, she was the entrepreneur. Like my dad had the same job for 40 years, really boring, work downtown. I couldn't even tell you what he did. It was just very boring. My mom was like, she owned her own scrapbook stores and was always selling something or setting up vendor shows. And because I was an only child, like I just ran around with her, so I was like always her little salesperson. Like, oh, my mom's selling these plates, or my mom's selling these purses, or, my mom was hustling all the time. There's always something going on. And so I think that's honestly, like, as down the road, this kind of entrepreneurship lifestyle and things like that, it kind of stemmed from my childhood, just kind of running around with her. So anyway, kind of in a weird funk for about 8 or 9 months, and then my best friend called, and he had started an escape room in Jackson, Tennessee. And so that's these were. And I was like, what's the concept? And he's like, they lock you in a room for an hour, and you have to solve puzzles and try to escape. And I'm like,
fun.
They're fun.
Fun to do.
They're fun to do. At that time, I was like, dude, no one's going to want to do that. That's weird. And so, but he convinced me more so just because I needed a change in my life. And so moved back to Waco. We opened Waco escape rooms. The first 2 months were dreadfully slow. They were awful. And it kind of, I think we touched on this here, but, we thought our demographic, like who we were targeting for who was going to come to play the escape room, we thought they were college students. So, we went to Baylor, TSCC's big time technical school, MCC's a big community college. Like, we're just going to get students. Like, they're going to come play the escape room. And like, so wrong. We had no idea what we were talking about, because for the first 2 months it was like a ghost town. Like I had hired staff, and we're like watching Netflix. Like I'm literally paying these people to sit there and watch Netflix with me. Like it was the worst, and because I didn't have the heart to like let them go, but I didn't know what to do, and so then kind of stumbled into figuring out that our demographic was actually like families in Waco, not like college students, and so that's kind of when stuff turned. I don't even remember the initial question, but that's kind of how that's
how basically how you got to
how I got into
okay.
Moved back, and escape rooms was the first venture.
And then so once you went through the escape rooms, then you started doing some of the other things, like Rogue Media Network, where
pedal tours was the first like non-escape room. We had opened 4, like one in San Marcos, Texas, Rockwall, up in Northeast Dallas, and then Moore, Oklahoma. It's just like 15 miles outside of Norman, like where OU is. So I'd done those 4 escape rooms, and I was like, all right, like we got this rhythm down.
Figured out what the demographic was.
Yeah, once we figured out who we were targeting, I was like, okay, now we can do this. But then there used to be a networking deal in town called 1 Million Cups, which is like every Wednesday morning. It's evolved into something else now called the Meetup, but we organized it, myself and 2 other people, and people would pitch their business. They would talk about whatever they're doing. And so this guy, his name is Joey, he runs a vineyard out in Valley Mills, and he pitched he was presenting his new business as a wine tour, Waco Wine Tours. And I was like, okay, like that's cool. And so we were sitting there like, well, what's another tour type business that isn't in Waco? And so we had researched these pedal bikes that are like 16 passenger bikes. They, drive around downtown. Y'all may have seen them or not, but we didn't have one back then. And so we started that business, and that was like the first not escape room business that we launched, that had a lot of similarities to like an entertainment type deal like an escape room is, but wasn't an escape room. So then that kind of, once we did that, then I was like, what else can we do? So
cool.
Then the craziness began. So
very cool, and you expanded from there.
Yeah,
very cool. Well, so our topic today, or what the concept that we're exploring today, is the art of selling.
Yep.
And navigating the sales process, not only from the seller side but also the buyer side.
Yeah.
Their perspective. So let's get into some questions.
Sure.
So in your entrepreneurial journey, how has your understanding of the sales process evolved? Which aspects would you highlight as the most crucial for success?
Yeah. So, and that's someone calling me for that sale. No, you start something in the old like Field of Dreams, which is a movie that probably none of y'all have seen, Kevin Costner. But there's that infamous line where he's like, "If you build it, they will come." And this guy in the movie's like trying to get a bunch of people to come to a baseball field. So he's like, "If I build the baseball field, they're going to play on a baseball field." And I think that gets used in business a lot. And probably when we started the escape room, we just thought, well, if we just build it, people will just show up. Like, it's a fun concept, and we have a sign. Like you don't know, like, why aren't people here? And so I think that gets used a lot in for a sales perspective. If you start a business and you're selling a product or a service, you just assume like, well, now that I've started this thing and I have a website or I have a location, people are just going to show up, and you don't have to like go out and like sell whatever you're doing. And it's just not going to happen. You're going to be there for a year and probably close because you're not like out there kind of pushing whatever you started and selling. In the beginning, you're kind of like throwing the blanket on it, trying to just hit all these areas to try to see what's going to stick or not. And I think that, from a startup perspective, I think that's a way to approach it. And then you kind of figure out, oh, okay, so if my demographic is families, if I'm going to sell the escape room, I'm not spending a lot of my time going to a college campus and talking to a room of 100 college students. I'd rather go spend my time, go talk to juniors, seniors, whatever at high school, or go to like a mom's group or like other networking deals downtown with like a chamber of commerce kind of stuff, because then you get to meet other like adults that are out doing things. So I think it was kind of probably the key to the sales is like first targeting like who you're actually spending your time selling to.
Do your target market research. Figure out what your demographic is. Then you can sell to the.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So as a seller, how do you approach identifying and qualifying potential customers effectively? And can you share an example?
Yeah. So when we got started with the escape room, it was hard because there wasn't any other escape rooms. Like we were like the 7th one in Texas, so we didn't have the ability to like look at, oh, okay, well, this other room is doing this, or there's research out here that shows these type of people like going to an escape room or some sort of activity. So we kind of had to learn those things on the fly. So a lot of it was like surveys that I would like literally take to places like church or friends of mine that I had, or it's not called Neighborly. It wasn't called Neighborly back then. It was the Dwyer Group. But I had some friends that were involved in franchising over there, and so they like help manage franchise accounts. Anyway, but I was like, hey, like, can you, when you have a meeting come up, can I like sponsor it? So like I'll give 4 free plays to the escape room, and you'll hand them out at this thing that like 400 people are coming to. But can you like do a survey for me? Like, so I was like constantly like trying to get as much data as I could, just like in the hands of people. And then you have to bribe them to do a survey. Not many people are going to do it if you don't incentivize them. But so that was probably like the main thing I was doing for the escape room, because it was so new. Fast forward to like a year ago, my wife and I purchased a juice business, and now that had 9 years of a track record. So I was like, okay, it's a little different. Like the customer has been established already, and so we know like this is the group we go after. There wasn't really like a lot of recreating the wheel with that, because we already had your
customer base in that particular case. So it wasn't a whole lot of selling necessarily because, or advertising, because that customer base was already there.
Yeah, but there was some like, the difference between like, outside sales or inside sales. I don't know if you guys have like covered that, but like,
that's kind of what we're touching on with this, is just figuring out, what is the sales process? You got to have to identify your customer, qualify them, discover what their pain points are, resolving their concerns, those type of steps.
Yes, yeah. So, identifying like, qualifying your customer is like saying, is this going to be one that is like actually going to spend money with me, right? Or not. And so like with the juice business, for example, the primary way that we make our revenue or we sell is like at the Magnolia, like tourism. So, but to understand what our customer needs to look like, we have the farmers market, which is very local, right? So y'all can go downtown Waco farmers market, and there are like loyal customers that come every Saturday, and you can try different products there. You can do different things to try to see like, oh, is this going to work or not? And you get your loyal people that'll give you good feedback and know, okay, this is still our customer. Like this type of person is still our customer. This person that's trying to be healthier or want something that's on the go or whatever, and then you implement that at like your main location or whatever that has it.
So in a case of the juice bar like that, then if you're wanting to introduce a new product, that's your place that you can do it. You can kind of experiment with it a little bit.
Yes, huge. Yeah, I mean, because again, you're gonna get honest feedback. You're not gonna lose your customer if they end up like hating it or something, because that's happened where they know this is like a trial and error thing, and so because we've done the hard part, like we've sold them on this product already. Like they are literally people that is what they do every Saturday is they come get their green goodies or their Sky Kissed or whatever. So you're not going to lose this person. You try that with a brand new customer, and I give you a juice and you like hate it. I doubt you're coming back because you're like, yeah, I tried this wacky weird flavor. Even if I'm telling you, I promise this is not our normal drink, you're going to remember that awful taste. Like you just will, and you're going to go to a different place.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So in the sales process, whether you're talking about, you're introducing a new product, you're selling, your concept or whatever. How do you handle objections during that sale process?
Oh, it's really hard. It's really hard. I'm the worst. Like I kind of studied under my mom, right? I watched her approach, and she always like made you feel like you were her best friend, or you were her, or she was your best friend in like 10 minutes. Like she didn't even know these people, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like how does she do that? And so, but mom was good about there's like not a saying, but we're talking about outside sales, right? So like cold calling kind of thing is maybe another way you might think of that, and you got to be like trained to like get 100 no's. Like that has to be almost like your goal for the day. Is if you're selling, like get 100 people to tell you no, and that means okay, you did good that day.
Yeah, right. Be comfortable with rejection.
You have to be comfortable with rejection. And my mom was totally fine with it because she was like, it was like a game to her, and she was like determined to get the yes. Sometimes with me, and I think there's another question, I'll touch on it, I'll go more in depth, but I'll get a no, and I'm like pissed. I'm like, I take it personally, you have offended me, you hurt my feelings, and it's like, I'm going to do something else now. And it's like hard, and it's just part of the game, and you have to be comfortable with, you're making t-shirts or something, and you're trying to get me to buy one, and I give you the, I'll think about it. You got to be ready for the next customer, right? Me, I'm like, I'll be like, nah, okay, I'm going to go take lunch then. Like, I can't, I need a minute to ponder. This person just rejected me. And so it is a hard, like, thing for me personally. It may not be hard for any of y'all, but that is tough sometimes. So, like, just roll with it, go to the next person. The next person is always your sale, right? And so the next one's going to be your sale. So you just have to have a little bit of thick skin and not take it personal and just go.
So I think you kind of touch on something with your mom a little bit.
Yeah.
In that she could like befriend somebody within 10 minutes.
Oh yeah.
Kind of what she said.
Totally.
What she said.
Oh yeah.
She had this way of establishing this rapport, this customer relationship.
Yeah.
Or some kind of relationship with her customers.
Yeah.
So how important then, from your perspective, is building that relationship with the customer when it comes to selling and sales?
I mean, that's like what it is. Like, I think it should just be called like relationship building, not sales. Like, I think people get cringy or your palms get sweaty. You're like, oh, I got to sell. I'm a salesperson, or it has like the used car salesman, or whatever. Like that is so not what it is. It is the relational side. And to mom's like credit, and she's not here to defend herself, but I'll say it like, I don't want you all to take this the wrong way, because she was a great person. But mom, like, she built that relationship really quickly with you because she wanted to sell you. And if you didn't buy it, she was moving on to the next person. And for me, the difference is like, I'll build a relationship with you, Martin, but I genuinely probably want to be your friend. So then I'm like, dude, I like this guy. Right. So I may not even want to sell you on something, because if you say no to me, then I'm not going to want to talk to you again. But I really like you, so I'm going to like tread really carefully. And I think in some ways, when your sales hat's on, you got to just be like, as bad as it sounds, like you're about that sale. If you don't want to buy the car, I'll get your information, I'll go to the next person. Versus like if you genuinely like want to be your friend, and that's why they say it's hard to sell to your family, because you don't want to.
You don't want to destroy the
relationship. So the relationship is hugely important, especially for like return sales of things. Like like realtors are really good at this because they are like building that relationship with you to hope that they're always going to be the person that sells your house, right? Every time you move or you buy something, you're going to the realtor that you built the relationship with.
Or even that if you had a good experience with that realtor, and you've got a friend then who I'm thinking of selling my house or buying a new house or whatever, you can say, hey, you know what, our realtor was really great. She did whatever.
The word of mouth there.
Yeah.
I mean, like with Rogue Media, like transition to that business, like we do a ton of podcasting. So we're selling our services to produce audio podcasts or video podcasts. We also do just direct marketing for people too. So, we'll do like commercial shoots but we always like build it around like podcast advertising or pushing a show. And so you're building this relationship with a client, you're selling them, they say yes, shake your hand, they're coming in, but they're not done. Like now you see them like every week and you are building that relationship every time you see that person. So you can't treat it just like get them on, get the money and move on. You're constantly like enhancing that relationship because you see them all the time, but also like, and there's the inside sales part where there's always things to kind of upsell them later. Like if they just want an audio podcast, they're paying $75 an episode just for an audio podcast. But you want them to get the video. Like video is more, they pay $125 an episode, but that now they're on YouTube or now we can cut better social clips and stuff. So like you're kind of upselling them but you can't do that if you don't have a good relationship with them.
Exactly. So, establishing the relationship is a very key point when it comes to it. And that's what our topic was yesterday, was talking about customer relationships. When we think about the selling process a little bit, and you think about, the steps to a sale. So when you think about, let's go with Rogue Media for example.
Yeah.
What is it that you do? What are some steps specifically that you take so that you get that yes, so that you close that sale, you close that deal?
Yeah. It's all about like their why, what's their motivation. So when you sit down, when you have a client meeting, like the first thing is you want to identify like, oh, you actually want to start a show. Or maybe they come to us, which is nice, but you might meet someone. I'll talk to Kaylee and try to, hey, Kaylee, I think you need to do a podcast about, your favorite thing you like to do or whatever. And you want to be friendly, make them feel comfortable to come in even just like to the office and like make a pitch to them or whatever. And so that's at first is like identifying, does this person even want a podcast or is there a fun concept you can try to get them into to talk to them about it? So like that's the first step, is just getting them in the door, and which is sometimes the hardest one. But then from there it's like it's just a check-in. My dad, he calls it like it sounds weird. He calls it the drip list, which he wasn't in sales at his job. He was like he did health benefits and stuff. So, but he always went with the sales team, and he'd be like the guy in the meeting that they would be like, Randy, what's the rates on that? And then he would like tell it to the sales people, and then they would pitch. But my dad was like, yeah, they always had like the drip list, and that was like people that you've met with that told you no, check in with them. You're like dripping water on them. So then it's like the next month, check in with them. How's it going, Martin? Hope you're doing well. I know you talked about that podcast about the business class you're doing, and is it the right time yet, or have you thought about it? And you might know, Cory, whatever.
So all that is part of the
that's all part of the qualifying stuff. Totally, yeah, that it totally is. And so you just want to build that funnel so that you're constantly like checking in that process of closing a sale, because it might take a year to close a sale. Like it just might. Somebody might just say, yeah, sure, I'll do it right on the spot. Other people, it takes time to build that trust
and to get to that yes.
Yeah, man, for sure.
So cool. So let's flip it then a little bit.
Okay.
So we've talked about from the sales perspective. Let's think about it from the buyer perspective.
Yeah.
So if we're out there and we're looking to buy something.
Yeah.
Okay. And so like when you go to buy something.
Yeah.
What kind of steps? What goes through your mind? What's the process that you go through when you're looking to make a purchase?
Oh, okay, that's good. I mean, I think for me, it probably always goes down to like need. Do I actually need to get this? Do I need a new shirt, or do I need to buy a new car? And so that's probably where it starts for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's different for a lot of people. Sometimes I'll come home and my wife there'll be all these Amazon boxes. And I'm like, what? Like, what did you buy? And she's like, well, I saw this and that, but I'm returning half of them, And it's like, that to me, like, just feels like drudgery. Like, I don't want to spend the time going to return something at the place at Kohl's where you have to walk through the back room to the Amazon thing. Like, I'd rather just not buy it at all unless I know I'm gonna need it. And so then I'm not.
So once you've established that you have this need, then what's your next step? What do you do next?
Probably qualify it with people that I know that may have purchased that item. Like, if it is shoes, for example, and I like the shoes you're wearing, I might come back to you, Martin, and say, did you like those? Tell me about the shoes.
Okay.
Because I'm looking to get a new pair. You're wearing the ones I kind of was thinking about, but I want to get word of mouth. I want to hear validation from you.
Okay.
Because I'm just not,
So you're doing your research in this case.
I'm doing my research, but usually it's somebody I can talk to physically about it. If you see an ad or something like that, or if I see one, I don't know if I'm prone to, if it's online and I'm like, oh man, I saw that thing online, I'm going to buy it. I think I would see it and maybe try to find somebody that knows something about it before I just jump in. But that's just, again, that's just me.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. So you've done your qualifying. You figured out, okay, I've got this need.
Yeah.
I've done my research. Then what? What's the next step from there?
Probably see if there's a discount or something, or a sale going on. It's you got a week before President's Day that just happens. Well, I know there's always President's Day sales, so I'm gonna wait until there's a President's Day sale, and it's even if you're, and sometimes the way they discount stuff can be a little tricky, right? But if you feel like you're getting a discount, then I'll still do it, because I'm like, well, I got 45% off, so even though they might have increased the price by 45%, but hey, I still got a discount. So that's probably how I try to line it up. I like it, I want to get it, now I've identified it, let me see if I can get a sale now in order to buy it. And then if I can't, I'm probably still buying it. if I really need it.
Yeah. So you really need it, then you go through that step and finally you get to the point where it's okay, I'm pulling the trigger, I'm buying it.
Yeah, I'm getting it anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now let's combine those thoughts a little bit. And maybe we look at this from a buyer's perspective.
Sure.
But what do you think are things that salespeople miss when they're actually, from a buyer's perspective? What are they missing in the buyer's perspective?
Yeah. I think anytime there's an interaction between a seller and a buyer, it's like a puzzle. And I think there's always a way to win. I think there's always a way to close the sale. I do. We used to do these mock sales when I was at Baylor, and they were
role plays.
Oh, they were brutal. I hated them. And and so you're practicing. You got to go sell the sponsorship. Get the guy to buy the video board thing in the arena or whatever. And so it's you're prepping and you're doing this, and all the class is watching on a screen what's going on in the mock room. So not only are you trying to do this, and you're selling to the fake person, but now your whole class is watching this too. So it's really nerve wracking. But so I'm overthinking the whole thing. But then the professor's just to let you know, if you really can pin this guy to a point where he's just out of objections, the no's, sorry, I got to talk to my wife, sorry, I got to talk to my husband, sorry, I got to wait for my tax return, all that stuff. You can actually get this person to say yes, and no one's ever done it. That's what he said, and I was oh, I'm fired up now. Before I was
it was a challenge.
Oh yeah, I was nervous, and then now I was this ever been done before? And so I go in, and they always teach you to look around the room, so it's oh, you have a flag of a lion. Oh, Martin, do you like lions? Tell me, have you been to a safari? Tell me about that or whatever. And so I didn't get the sale, so I'll bury the lead. I did not get it, but I feel I was close. But there's always it's like a puzzle. And so the mistake made, I think, from people selling to the buyer is they're just not listening well enough. I think there's breadcrumbs within a sale that you can see a pathway to it, and some are a lot harder than others, right? There's some people you can sell to, and they're extremely obvious. They just really want the product. It's a hot summer day, and you're selling ice cream or something. It's they probably want this ice cream cone. But Some are harder, but I think there's always a pathway. It just takes listening to it. And as you got to see what the seller needs to hear what the buyer is telling them. And some of it may just be like, this is not the right time. Don't make them mad or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think the mistake made is you're just so into your own, what I need to be trying to sell, that you're not even listening to what they're saying. You just keep telling them, well, the podcast, it reaches all these people and we make it real easy for you and we produce it. And they may not even be saying that. Like, you're just not listening to them.
I think that's where most people come with the idea of these pushy salesmen. Is they just keep going.
They keep going.
They just keep going and they keep trying to get you to buy something or whatever. Mm-hmm. They're not listening to you.
They're not listening.
They haven't established that relationship. They haven't established that rapport, and they're not listening to what you're actually saying, and maybe not actually listening to what your need is, so that they can try to meet that need.
Correct. And again, it may just not be the right timing right then.
Yeah.
But if you make them angry, or if you make them uncomfortable, they're never going to pick up your phone call again. Or if they see you in the grocery store, they're running the other way, or stuff like that. And you don't want to get to that point, because it may not be a sale right then and there, but it may be one down the road. And so it's just a whole listening game. And from a buyer's perspective, like, I think you're constantly like evaluating in your brain, do I need to buy this right now? Like, this person's just selling this to me. Like, I'm going to give them 5 more minutes and then I'm off the phone or whatever. But I do think sometimes as a buyer, like, you can get intrigued by something that they're selling to you. And I think as the seller, you have to remember that. So I think it's always valuable to remember what your feelings are on the buyer side, and then translating that over to the sales side, because then you kind of can get in their head a little bit, if that makes sense.
Okay, so one last question, then we'll kind of open it up to these guys.
Yeah.
If they have any questions.
For sure.
So imagine you've got somebody who is a young entrepreneur. Maybe it's one of these kids in this room.
Okay.
Okay. What advice would you give them on developing their sales skills and navigating the world of selling?
Ooh, that's really good. So we do some work with high school students that try to develop out a business plan, but then are part of like what's called an incubator, where students can have like startup funds and start a business, and we do them in the summertime. So this was 2 summers ago. I had a student, and she wanted to do a board game cafe. I don't know. It's like a place where you just go play board games, and usually pay like $5 to play a board game, and you can be there all day. But then you like upsell them on drinks or food or whatever. So it was a cool concept. They're a big deal in larger cities and stuff like that. So she wanted to do this. Mm-hmm. So okay, so there's a place downtown that was willing. It's called Nexus. There's a lot of gaming going on there, and they were okay with her sitting there, bring her board games, and kind of try to sell it to the people that are there. This is like, this audience loves games, so this is like easy. So her name's Kaylee. She sets it up at her board games at the top, gets her desk out, and she's just sitting there. Behind her desk on her phone, just sitting there. And so I'm like off talking to the owner guy, and I'm like, I'll be here for an hour just to kind of make sure she's okay. Mm-hmm. And she didn't get her butt out of that chair for 45 minutes and nothing. And so I'm like watching, she hasn't made one sale. So I go over there, I'm like, Kaylee, are you gonna like walk around? She's like, well, no, they know I'm up here. I'm like, do they know you're up here? Yeah, do they know? And so she was like, I don't know. I'm like, take this game, go to that table, like there's like 4 people right there. Just ask them if they $5. Just ask them. Like, they don't even know you're up here. And so, like, you could just see the sweat pouring down her face at this point. She was so nervous, but she just went and did it. And what did they do? Like $5. They take the game. They come and order coffee, and she was making like little lattes or whatever she was doing. And but the whole point of that was just like, at first, like, y'all just need to just get in and do it. Like, so when you're selling, or when you're trying to get your business off the ground, don't just, back to what we said in the beginning, like, oh, I made the T-shirt, so it should just sell. Like, why is nobody buying it? Like, get out there, and you got to be a little uncomfortable at first. And so my advice is just to start selling, like, and talk to people. I know you want to just post it online, and like, well, check out my Instagram, but you got to have this interaction, like, and get the rejection, get the person to tell you no. But that's, I think, just to get it off the ground and get going. That, and adults have that problem. That's just students.
So it's a matter of just putting yourself out there to a certain degree.
Yeah, if it's your first thing and you're just getting going, you got to do that.
You gotta have the courage to get out there and say something to somebody.
Yeah, and that's why like entrepreneurship, like if y'all in this class here, like if you don't even end up starting a business, that's fine. Like the some of the soft skills you'll learn in here, like talking to people and being able to go to an interview and stuff like that, that translates to whatever you end up doing, even if you never start a business. So, but those are the hard things, and it just takes getting out there and just doing it.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, questions for Mr. Cory. Any questions you guys have for him?
Nothing.
This is a quiet group today.
Nothing. What room did you play at the escape room?
The big one in the back.
The Hall of Fame of the sports stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't get out though.
No, well, that's okay. Maybe you had a bad group. It wasn't you.
Yeah,
It wasn't you. Yeah, never is.
So,
are y'all like thinking of starting a business, or you guys do you do that in the class, or?
we actually, these guys actually run our school store.
Oh, school store.
We'll pass it when we go to the next class.
Okay, what do you sell at the school store?
Most of it is like spiritware.
Oh, okay. Like what's on the wall.
Exactly.
Okay. I like the 2K22. I like that.
Actually, so the 2K22 and the 23 senior were both designed by previous students.
Cool. Okay.
So and these guys have the chance to design it as well.
All right.
To get it out there.
Cool.
Then we produce it and we sell it in the school store.
Yeah.
But I know we've got one gentleman toward the back there, Mr. Jordan.
Jordan.
He wants to do stuff.
Jordan, what's your business? What do you want to do? Graphic design. Are you like making shirts and stuff? Okay.
So
all right.
Hopefully this gives him some of the skills that he can translate to it later on.
That's big time. Yeah, that's really good.
All right.
Cool.
No other questions for Cory? Okay. Well, Cory, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Can we give him a round of applause, please, for coming? Yeah. Cool. So, all right. Thanks, Cory.
Thanks, Martin. Appreciate it, man. Yes, sir.